problems that I have, which I honestly don't think is a problem, but it probably is the fact that I'm always future focused. I'm always looking ahead. I'm always excited about the possibilities of what's coming up. But I know that not everybody is like that. Some people sit down to think about their goals and they're just like, I have no idea. I have no idea what I want to do. I have no idea what I want to work on. Please help. Well, that is what we're going to do in today's video. We're going to be having a look at the kind of process that I use to figure out what goals I want to work on. Like, what are my ideas? What kind of pain points and challenges do I have? What do I want to address? But then also, how do I select the ones that are going to be the best for the period coming? We can't work on everything at once. Well, you can, but you probably won't make all that much progress in all of the things you want to, actually make progress on. So which ones do we actually focus on? How do we pick the ones that are going to be best for the time ahead? Right? We've already had a question. Is this recorded? Yes, it definitely is. So if you're here on the replay, hello, such a pleasure to have you here. And if you're here live, it's also a pleasure to have you here. Let me know, are you going to be doing some goal brainstorming and picking alongside with us, or are you just hanging out? Either is cool. We love to have you here. But in terms of the stuff we're going to focus on today, as said, it is very much about that idea of the very initial stages of your goal-getting journey. So figuring out what it is you want to work on, like the possibilities that you have, and then picking from those possibilities so that we are kind of making a more focused list. We're not going to try and work on every single thing at once. We might work on multiple things. I'm a big fan of working on multiple things. It gives me choice, and if I don't give myself choice, then rebel brain kicks in. We don't want that to happen either. So figuring it out, what are the possibilities, but what are we actually going to work on? So as part of this, like going through, a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about today is featured in Epic Goals. Now, if you haven't heard of Epic Goals, this is our goal-getting kind of course and community. That one is over at epicgoals.club. So if you want to learn more about Epic Goals and go through the entire process of goal-getting, like brainstorming, picking, setting it properly, making intentional action plans and all of that, then that is the space to check out. I will list it in the description box. I don't know if it's there yet, but there is a QR code on screen if you wanted to go through and have a look at that one. But in terms of what we're doing today, you will need something to write on and something to write with if you want to do this with us. I personally prefer to do this in something like a scribble book. I like it to be somewhere that I can be quite messy, because if I start to get a little bit too particular and too prissy about how it looks, I'm not going to let my thoughts flow very well. I'm not going to get things down onto paper in a way that means that I'm really doing like a thorough job of this brain setting kind of process, like getting things out and all that. I know some people don't like brain dump as a term. Sometimes I like to use mind unwind, if that's something that you prefer. But in terms of getting things out of our head to start with, that is very much the first step. It's just writing down any and all goal ideas you have, because oftentimes when we come into a proper kind of goal setting process, we already have, some vague concepts of what we might want to work on. So I personally prefer to do this in two different ways. One of them is a mind map. So that's what we've got here on this kind of side. And the other one is a list, because when it comes to being able to use the information that we're getting out of this, a mind map is absolutely excellent for linking ideas. When you have a thought and it leads to another and it leads to another and it kind of makes that like chain, mind mapping is great for that. So for instance, you could start with the central idea of goals, branch out into different life areas, and then think about what you want to do in all of those life areas and kind of connect things together, makes this like net or web of the stuff that you've been thinking about. But it can be kind of hard to pull goals out of that at the end, because it can get a little bit more messy. On the other hand, a list is great for that kind of like usability of the information come the end. And also if you have a thought that just isn't related to anything you've already put down on your mind map. So I like to use both. Oftentimes I will do them on separate pages, but for the sake of being able to see what we're doing today, I've just put them on the same one here. I'm using a kind of like B5-ish size notebook. Doesn't matter what you're using, as long as it's something that you can write on. All right. So just getting started with it, thinking about what possibilities are there? What kind of general life areas do I have? Is there anything in particular I want to work on in those life areas? Life areas is usually a place I start because it's just a really nice way to simplify my thinking. So I'll kind of branch out from this saying like, okay, I have the life areas of home and maybe one for family, or family and friends if you want. We could do work or career. That could be an idea or an area. We could have finances. We could have like self-care, or it could be like physical care, mental care. So we could just put that down as health if you wanted. Health. And all of these are just going to branch out from the center as general life areas. Now, the ones that you include on yours, it is going to be a personal thing, right? All of my life areas may not be the same as all of your life areas. And there may also be life areas that you just don't think you need to focus on right now. That's totally fine. Like, for instance, if you feel that your family and friends category is totally okay, you don't have to put that down on your list. If you feel like that doesn't need to be a focus for you in the upcoming period, or you can't really think of any goals related to that, then you do not have to do it. All right. This is very much like a pick your own adventure type thing. I prefer to do a fairly thorough job of writing down all of my life areas just so that I know that when I finish this process, I have everything that could possibly be a goal written out. But if there's stuff that you're just no, doesn't need to be a focus, then you don't have to include that. So in terms of life areas, what kind of life areas do you think that you have? Now, as I said, not all of our life areas are going to be the same. We have some here, but there are also other ones. So for instance, we could do home environment, but also digital environment. So digital spaces, that can be one. We could also have life areas of, if you want to go health and then break it down, you could do mental and physical. You could have fun as a category, because just because we have family and friends doesn't mean that that's always related to our fun. Fun can be solo fun as well. You may also want to make it so that your partner is a separate category, especially if you feel like the goal setting that you would do in a partner category is different to what you would do with family and friends. So for me, that would be Swink Vogel, because he's my partner, right? You don't have to use their name, but you could just write partner, or, if you have a particularly significant person in your life, maybe you want to have goal setting related to them, something like that. Yeah, family is not always fun. Exactly. It's not always fun. So you might want to have those as separate categories. You might also want to make family and friends separate categories as well, because possibly your goal setting in the family category could just be distinctly different to what you want to do for friends. After that, what else do we have? I had one in mind and I completely lost my train of thought, but you get the idea, right? These, though, that we're writing down, these are not goals yet. These are just big ticket categories. So it's just a way for us to kind of organize our thinking as we start to brainstorm our goals, all right? So if we're thinking a little bit more deeply about this now, thinking about what goal possibilities we have in these areas, what kind of things do you feel like would be good to work on, or you want to work on, or you need to work on in each of those areas? And we can write those down as well. Now, the thing with doing the mind map is that getting a little too wordy on here can make it very hard to read after the fact. So I typically like to simplify anything I'm writing down here and not write it out as a full goal statement. So for instance, if we're doing finances, maybe one of the goals you have related to that is increasing your savings. So we can write savings. But rather than writing out save $500 across the next 3 months or something like that, that's quite wordy. That's a lot of stuff to write down for something that could end up being quite cluttered. So what I might do in that case is, rather than write the specifically long worded goal out here, I would put that over in the list, right? You can use these two together, and that's definitely what I do, using them kind of in tandem. So in terms of a savings goal, I would be writing down increase my savings to X amount of money. Personal savings goal, completely up to you, but that is essentially how I would be writing it out. Typical goal setting category is spirituality. Excellent idea. So we can put that one in as well. Spirituality. Some people also like to do charity and giving as a category, so we can put that one in. If you have any kind of religious practices that you want to put in there, you could also put that down instead of spirituality or alongside it, if you consider them to be two separate things, because these categories, remember, they're going to be up to you. right? You need to make sure that you're picking and choosing the ones that are actually relevant to you. For instance, if you don't have like, a partner or a significant other, then that's not really a category you need to put in there. Or if you do have goals that you want to set in that category, even if you don't currently have one, then it might still something like be something you want to include, right? So once you've got your category sorted, again, they're really just here to help us organize our thinking. They are not the end kind of thing. We're not just like, oh yes, my goal is health. I mean, like, sure, but let's get a little more specific about it. What do you want to do, or what do you feel would be good to do with relation to that? So in terms of, physical health, that could be stuff like nutrition, nut, rit, yon. Excellent, cool. That's how I remember how to spell it. It could be about hydration. It could be about exercise. And you can break that down further if you want to. It could be about like, finding new exercises. See this? See how beautifully weird that S looks? This is why we're doing it in the messy space, because then it doesn't matter how it looks. What matters is that we get it out onto paper, right? So breaking the mental health down space further, it could be about rest, it could be about stress management, it could be about like, going through and just getting stuff off of your future me problems list. That was a big one for me. I'm a collector of tasks that I put onto future Jess. I'm like, oh, this would be a cool project to do. Well, I can't do that right now, but maybe future Jess can do that. And then future Jess is looking at this overwhelming list of stuff that has been put on her plate. She's like, why have you forsaken me, past Jess? Why did you do this to me? So maybe tackling that could be a goal area. As I said, though, as I'm going through, oftentimes I'll start to think about little bits and pieces that they don't necessarily fit in any of the categories I've got, but there's still something I genuinely want to work on. Make sure you're writing those down as you go. Because really the point of this kind of process is just getting our initial ideas out. It is not where we are going to finish. It's not where we're going to like end and be like, cool, done my mind map. That's all of the stuff that I need to do in terms of brainstorming my goals. There are other things we can do. But for instance, some of the things that I want to do in terms of the fun category would be celebrations, especially for this kind of like end of the year where we have, end of year celebrations. We've got like my birthday, we've got family birthdays and all of that kind of thing. There's stuff that I want to do in that kind of realm. This is also something that links to friends and family. And this is why I like to do a mind map, because you can see the connections between things and see how working on one goal can serve multiple life areas. That's something I very much value. So for instance, like in terms of finances and work, those can have goals that cross over quite a lot. In terms of finances and charity, that can have goals that cross over a lot as well. Physical and mental health, super, super closely related. So maybe there are goals that you can work on that will tackle multiple life areas and kind of bring your baseline happiness in those life areas up, if that kind of makes sense. You've formulated one goal, you have what? I have more things I want to work on too that I want to plan for. Excellent idea for planning for those. You already chose your 2026 goals. You're just here to create your action plan. Love it. Glad to have you here with us. I think that also, especially around this time of year, I start to get really focused on 2026 or like, the year ahead or whatnot. It's always towards the end of September. I'm like, ooh, the shininess of the new, like fresh start of the new year. And I have to remind myself, like, we do still have time. I can totally make progress on things this year. I do not have to wait until the new year to get started. So the kind of things that we're thinking about in the second part are going to be about like, selecting the ones that we want to work on right now. That can be something that we also remind ourselves of, like what kind of stuff could I do in the last 3 months of the year that will kind of set me up for success in the new year. This is probably silly, but I've never known how to do a mind map. This is so helpful. I'm glad it's helpful. I'm glad that you're finding this useful. So as we go through, branching out from that central idea, giving ourselves the big broad categories, and then getting a little more granular. So I'm going to go through and just add a couple different bits and pieces so you can kind of see how this might work. So date nights. We can do things like future planning. We also are talking about possibly going on a honeymoon, or what we're calling the mini moon, because it wouldn't be like a full-blown honeymoon, especially at the end of the year when things get a little bit busy and hectic. Doing anything too major feels a little bit too much. You've been doing side quest items for the past 2 quarters, getting a lot done, but not always the ones you wrote down. Yeah. I am both a big fan of side quests because you get the kind of like accomplishments of those little bits and pieces that are like, these satellite projects that you have, but then also it gets a little bit maybe demotivating when the big ticket items that, the stuff that's on the, yearly bucket list or whatever, those ones you're not making progress on. That can be a bit of a bummer. So home projects, I'm just gonna write cozy vibes. Even though we're moving into summer, I'm seeing all of the fall content and I'm like, I want it to be autumn here as well. For anybody who doesn't know, I live in New Zealand. We're moving into spring, hay fever season. Yay. For digital, I want to do a declutter of that space. That would be a good one for me. I would write declutter for home, but that was one of my goals for this quarter. So it feels very refreshing to not have to write that down. When you're going through this, right? Because obviously I'm doing this as kind of an example for you for what it could look like as you're filling it in. Don't write things down that you don't want to do. Like, okay, we're going to explore that a little further because sometimes goal work is stuff that you don't want to do, but you know it's going to be genuinely beneficial for future you to have done it. What I'm more so thinking about here is don't write things down just because you feel like you should write them down. Right? This is an opportunity to be very honest with yourself. And the more honest you are with yourself, the more likely you're going to pick goals that are going to have more of an impact on your life. Like, I don't want you to sit here and be like, gosh, one of my goals like should be lose weight, or one of my goals should be declutter my house. If that's not something that you genuinely feel like is going to have a benefit to you, don't put it down. Not worth it. All right. We want this to be a process that like feels impactful and is exciting and all of that kind of stuff. Like that's part of what EPIC stands for. EPIC is about exciting and about impactful and about being practical, but also kind of a little challenging. So I don't want you to be writing things down just because you feel like society tells you should have this as a goal, right? Like, if we're thinking about the family category, I just got married. So of course the next question is, when are you having kids? I'm just like, that's not going on my goal list right now. Not even remotely. Like, all right, I got other things to do, obviously. But in terms of work, notably, I'm going to write Vlogmas. If you are not a content creator, then you might not want to write down Vlogmas. Yes, spam me with the photos of autumn just so I can live vicariously through all of you. Exactly. Yeah, I should meal prep, but I'm not there yet. Exactly. And I think the thing is that even if it's something that you think you would like to do in future, you can still write it down on the list. Like, for instance, physical nutrition for me, I've been enjoying my meal prep, but I am getting kind of into a little slump period with it. And I know in my heart of hearts that Q4 Jess is going to struggle with meal prep. So maybe that's something that I just give her a pass on in Q4, but we're not up to picking goals just yet. Anywho, other things that we can write down though is in terms of nutrition, actually, I would write new meals. It would be cool to try some different ones. In terms of health, it will be rest and sleep. I need to get better sleep routines. Ugh, I don't like that. I need to. I want to. I would like to be better with my sleep. Anyway, what else do we have? In terms of work, I'm going to write down schedule. By this, I mean like work time versus not work time. That is still something I would like to work on. I feel like there's value to be added there. We're going to say, put the celebrations here. Meow. Social events. This is the thing, this stuff can get messy and look a little weird and such, and that's why we do it on the scribble pad. This is why we do it in this space that we don't mind if it looks a little bit messy, so that then you're not sitting here like, oh, I have to use my perfect handwriting. I know I'm using a voice right now. I'm literally doing this to myself because I am that kind of person. No, Jessica, you do not have to use your perfect handwriting. You just need to get it onto the page. But other things that I can note down for finances would be budget population, because I have been slacking on that and I would like to get a little bit better with it. Work, I also would like to continue my inbox zero efforts because that I have also been slacking on. But you can kind of start to see that as we branch out from these things, you can get a little bit of a kind of indication as to the stuff that you would like to work on, type of a thing. But the stuff we're really doing here is very much just that kind of initial brain dumping, mind unwinding, getting the initial thoughts out of our head. And for some people coming into doing this kind of process, you'd just be like, I still don't know what I want to work on. This is why I find the mind mapping could be quite helpful, because you're breaking it down into those life areas and considering, okay, well, rather than what do I want to do in life, it's just what do I want to do for like friends and family in that category. What do I want to do in terms of my, physical well-being? What do I want to do in terms of my financial well-being? So thinking about it more in that kind of like targeted sense gives you some restriction to your thinking, which can be very helpful. Curious why you say you're going to struggle with meal planning, mainly because when I start to find that other areas of my life kind of pick up in terms of work or like the amount of effort and energy I need to expend in them, the first thing that I sacrifice is cooking at home. So, given the fact that we're moving into the end of the year, general life busyness, vlogmas, all of that kind of thing, the first thing that I usually sacrifice, like it is a practice of mine, a default pattern. The first thing that I sacrifice is cooking at home. But yeah, let's see. Do you have a recommended time to give for the mind map? I love the question. So I find that time restriction on this type of stuff can be very good for making sure that you're focusing on the task at hand, and also making it so that it doesn't balloon out to your entire afternoon, kind of a thing, or morning, depending on when you're watching this, or evening, or middle of the night. I typically find that when I mind map, because I'm a bit more practiced at it and I've done it quite a few times before, I kind of know the process that I use. I will usually give myself about 10 to 15 minutes, because by the time I get to that, provided that I've been kind of focused on my efforts with that, anything beyond that, I'm just sitting there really scraping the bottom of the barrel and it's no longer being as beneficial. Whereas if I was kind of just starting out, I'd probably expand that to about 20 minutes as I give myself, a bit of time to play around with the different styles and figuring out what I'm doing and such. The thing that I really find with the mind mapping, though, is that even if I give myself that 10 to 15 minutes or whatnot to do it, that doesn't mean that it's necessarily never going to get touched again. I very much allow myself to kind of come back and add things as I start to think about other stuff, when I go through the kind of like secondary parts of the brainstorming process. Because this is just the first part of brainstorming, right? This is the first part where it's just get the initial ideas out of your head type of a deal. If you find the idea of 10 minutes too overwhelming, you're like, oh God, that's like a lot of time to sit here and just like dump things onto a page type thing, just give yourself 5. And then if at the end of 5 you feel like you're not done, give yourself another 5, that kind of a thing. Alrighty. Are you writing all your goals or are they time specific, like for a set amount of time? Great question. When I do this, I typically think about like anything and everything that I might want to work on, mainly because I want to reward my brain for having the thought and writing it down. If I start to put restrictions on my thinking and be like, no, Jessica, you cannot do that in the next 3 months. You cannot do that in the next 6 months. Then I essentially start to filter my thinking before I even give myself the opportunity to have a thought. Right now, I'm just letting myself think of anything and everything that I might want to work on and putting it down. I'm going to get a little bit more realistic with it when it comes to that second stage where I actually pick and choose what I'm going to work on. Just because I write it down doesn't mean it is like, set in stone. This is a piece of paper. I can scrunch it up and throw it away and start again if I want to. I'm not like, putting it out, like painting it on my wall to say, yes, this is my declaration of things I'm going to do type of a deal. So anything that I write down here, just because I've written down doesn't mean it's actually going to happen. I'm going to get a little bit more picky and choosy with it later. So you're allowed to dream big here. You're allowed to think about stuff like, you know what? I want to take a vacation to the Bahamas. I have no idea if people actually want to go to the Bahamas still. Is that still a thing? I don't know. But you can write things down here that you know that you're not feasibly going to be able to do in the next 3 months, 6 months, or whatnot. You're just kind of like putting that out there as like I would like this at some point. And it might not be a right now thing, or it might not be a right now to completion type thing. If you write down, I want to take a holiday, I want to take an international trip or whatnot, but you're not going to do that in Q4 of this year. What could you do towards that in Q4? Maybe you can figure out some of the potential places you want to go on your international trip. Maybe you could figure out some of the activities you want to do if there's a particular place you want to go, or something like that, even if it's not finishing it off completely. Like, okay, I want to go to Japan. And then by the end of December, I have gone to Japan. Maybe just by the end of December, I've figured out some potential spots I want to visit or something, like found all of the best matcha cafes in the entire of Japan. Okay, maybe not, but maybe. Yeah, so this is a someday in the future I want to work on. Yes, it can be. I don't like to limit my thinking here. I like to keep it very open, mainly because if I start to put those restrictions on myself, I'm going to spend more time thinking about whether something deserves to be on my list or is allowed to be on my list, rather than just getting things out of my head. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. You have a 5-year plan to go to Europe and do a castle tour. That sounds so cool. I have been seeing a lot of videos at the moment about like trips to Scotland, and I'm like, why is this on my radar? I'm not even the one going to Scotland. Monica is going to Scotland. So I just send them all to her, and now the algorithm's like, oh, you like Scotland videos? We're gonna send you more Scotland videos. Anyway. So as said, do your mind map, get your thoughts out, break it down into your life categories if you want to, or you could also, if you wanted to, break this down in different ways. It could be like immediate goals versus long-term goals. It could be, stuff related to, just a small selection of categories in your life if you wanted to. It doesn't have to be every single life area, but then also putting this alongside your list view can also be quite useful. So in terms of like a rapid fire, quick list view of things that I think I want to do, I want to make 10 new to me meals. That would be a good idea. I would like to continue my weight loss, lose weight. Lose is 1-0. Just if you were wondering. Yes, no, it does not have to be perfect spelling, but I still like to pretend that I know how to do English. Alrighty. Now I kind of want to go to Scotland, so I'm going to write go to Scotland. Is that going to happen in the next quarter? No. So when it comes to actually picking the goals, we're going to talk about it a little bit more in a second. But I do typically like to do my goal setting in the 3-month blocks kind of a thing. So in the next 3 months, will I be going to Scotland? Possibly not. And Scotland will welcome you. Thank you, Mary. I'm excited about this potential Scotland trip that was not on my radar until approximately 6 minutes ago. But other things that we want to do, I want to have an IG worthy quote event. And by this I mean I just keep on coming across all of these reels on Instagram that are like people doing, cozy reading retreats or, cozy movie marathons or like whatever, and it's all very either fall inspired or very themed, and it's just gorgeous. I'm like, you know what? I want to do one of those. I love the creative aspect that goes into event planning like that. I want to do one. So we obviously have Vlogmas as part of my goals. We're going to chuck that one down as a potential goal idea. We can do continued date nights with Vogel. I'm really enjoying those, so I want to keep that on my radar. Maybe I want to finish my second brain. That would be good. Finish my second brain setup. If you're like, Jessica, what is this? What is this second brain that you talk about? It's essentially just like my digital system for my personal knowledge management. It's essentially where I keep all of my reference materials and all of that type of a thing, my notes. That one's done in Notion. So I'd like to formally set some of the spaces up in there. First time live. Oh, awesome. I'm glad that you made it along. So as you go through, write down your general thoughts and points and such. You can also use this to expand on any of the ones that you've written in your mind unwind space or your mind map over here. So actually giving it a little bit more of a form. But this is not the only way to figure out what it is that you want to work on, right? So while this is great for getting your initial ideas out, if you have initial ideas, and oftentimes we do have them kicking around in the back of our head, we just really need to sit down and be a little intentional about writing them out. There are other things that we can think about. And this is definitely something that we talk about more in Epic Goals. But the two main things that we're going to think about, creak, creak, ASMR with the paper, the heebie-jeebies, we're going to flip this way, is one, what is it that you just like? You're just excited about, you want more of in your life and you want to work on, versus the other side of that is what is your pain points? What's the stuff that kind of sucks right now? What's the stuff that you want to make better or do something to make it so that there's less of that in your life, right? So we say heart, yay, I like this, versus unheart, or what I'm going to do is unsmiley face. Okay, so what are the positives? What are the stuff that's like lighting you up, the stuff that you're excited to get in and do? This could be something that's you haven't done before but you're super interested in it. So maybe you want to explore watercolor painting. Maybe you're really into the idea of starting a reading journal. You haven't started one before. Or it could be stuff that you already do and you just want more of in your life. Like maybe you love taking, cinema dates. Maybe you love going to the cinema and like seeing a movie on the big screen, and you love the experience of like, being there with a bunch of other people who also want to watch the same film and all of that kind of thing. Each to their own. All right. Yeah. Missed opportunity for a broken heart. I was going to do a broken heart, but I like the unsmiley face. But yeah, we'll do both. We'll do it a broken heart so that then everybody gets to be a winner. But we'll also do a smiley face over here. There we go. Excellent. So this is the good stuff. This is the stuff that we want more of. We're excited to bring into our life. New experiences we want to try, all of that kind of thing. Whereas the other side is pain points, stuff that kind of sucks, stuff that we want less of, stuff that we want to remedy in our life, that kind of thing. So we're going to write down some general points. Okay, so what am I excited about? What do I want more of? What lights me up? Whereas on the other side, the waha, the not so smiley face, what low-key sucks right now. What are my pain points? Ew. There we go. It's better. I always wrote I'm like, that's not the word I'm looking for. Pain points. We need to finish that with a question mark. We're going to pretend that we can do English. And what do I want less of? What do I want less of? Okay. Alrighty. So in thinking about this, I find that positive things that we love in our life, that we want more of in our life and stuff, they can be a great basis for goals because it's just like, oh, I want to bring more of this. I want to have an increase of this in my life. I want more joy. I want more excitement. I want more enjoyment, all of those kind of things. Whereas pain points are also an excellent space to work for goals because this is like moving away from pain, moving away from those things that suck, getting less of that in your life, decreasing the amount you have. One of my Q2 goals this year was sleeping from midnight to 8 each night. Nice. Got really good at it. It's half midnight, so I'll slowly get ready and fall asleep now. Good night. It was a pleasure to have you here while you were here. So in terms of things that I'm excited about, I am excited about right now reading. I've actually kind of started getting back into reading because I was in a bit of a reading slump. So that was kind of, something that has been enjoyable for me. So reading. Other things that are fun and enjoyable and exciting are travel and trips. I like going places and experiencing new things. Yeah, will she ever read that question mark? Was there a question mark? Gosh, dang it. I missed one. Thank you. I was doing so well. I was obviously not. I missed it on literally the second one, but it's fine. It's all good. We can pretend she knows English. So other things that I am excited about and that I enjoy. I enjoy cooking, but more so than that, I enjoy cooking new things. And that's also in part why I want to try making new meals. Now, as we go through this, it is totally okay to write down things that you had on this section here, all right? It is all goods if you have already written it down. Still write it down. That's important, okay? So if you're going through and you're just like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm just writing the same things over and over again. Ugh, boring. That's actually like part of the point. Because if you're writing it down multiple times, this is just highlighting to you that this is something that maybe, not to go too woo-woo with it, your soul needs this. Your soul wants to work on it. But more so, it's just really a good indicator that possibly this is something that is a right now priority for you. And by writing it down multiple times, by, rewarding the fact that your brain had the thought and putting it down onto paper, it just helps when it comes to the actual kind of selecting of goals portion. All right. Also, remember, Tink, have a drink as we go through. Let me know. What are you drinking today? I've actually got water for once. The body is very excited to see it. Thank you for doing this. I start planning my goals way too late. Yeah, no, I completely understand that. I've been thinking in particular about my Q4 goals recently and trying to put off thinking about them. Like, no, Jess, you need to do this part of reset week. I'm like, but do you have to? Can you not start dreaming a little earlier? So I'm glad that it is timely for people. Book club gave you the joy of reading. Nice. I'm so glad. Yeah, I enjoy our reading space and all that. Salt hydration, love it. We've got a water. Excellent. You've already had a water today. Oh, you've already had a liter today. But you want more. Excellent. The body gets what the body wants. Yep. 3 drink ADHD club. Excellent. It's always good to have options. Love that. Just water for you tonight. Very good. Alrighty. So things that we love, things that light us up, things that we're excited about. I am enjoying playing in Notion, like, a lot. I've very much been enjoying that recently. I'm just going to put down playing around. And in terms of other things that I have been enjoying, like social time recently has been really fun. Because sometimes my social battery is just like wah wah, but recently social time has been good for me. And family time. Family time has also been good for me recently, which is good because towards the end of the year we usually get an increase in that. So it's nice that I've actually been enjoying it. Let's see. We've got some more water in your spooky season Stanley Cup. Oh, that's cool. We've got a soda. Delicious. I'll be moving on to that next. So as said, along with this stuff that you're excited for and you want more of and it lights you up and all of those kind of things, we also need to think about the stuff that either low key or high key sucks. Like, what in your life are you just not vibing with? Like, I don't like this. I don't want more of this. I want to remedy this in some way. Now, the thing with this is that, anytime we start thinking about the negatives, I find that oftentimes the negatives list ends up a lot longer than the positives. A lot of us, a decent number of us have kind of this negativity bias where it's a lot easier to think about the stuff that kind of sucks or the stuff that we don't like versus the stuff we do. That is totally okay for this, right? This is not like a goal reflection type situation where we're thinking about our challenges and the stuff that hasn't helped us work on our goals or whatever, where I do like to try and be a little bit more positive focused. This is getting really real, really honest with yourself. If something sucks right now, even if it's just like a minor inconvenience, write it down on the list, right? So for instance, my well, I guess it wasn't the minorest of inconveniences, but one of the things that sucked for me in the last quarter was the fact that we had a leaky shower, which meant that somebody had come in and cut holes in my wall. So the first thing that I woke up to every single morning was holes in my wall. Just so unattractive. And it was just this like constant reminder of the fact that the project wasn't finished, and that was the beautiful, and by beautiful I mean ugly ass mess that I would wake up to every single morning. It was an assault on the senses type deal. So that was a pain point for me. That was something that, like, sure, it didn't really change my day-to-day operations in life. It didn't make things, harder to move around or anything like that. But it was something that every morning I would wake up and I would see that, and it would put me in a more negative mindset than I needed to be for the day, right? So that would have been something that I would write on my list. For instance, what low-key sucks right now? What does suck right now? My eating patterns, to be honest. We're gonna write my eating patterns. I found that this month in particular, they have not been doing as well as they had previously, which has not been great. I would say that other things that haven't been really all that great right now. What sucks? I've been trying to be so positive lately. This is going to be difficult, which is odd because usually pain points come to me quite easily. Let's go back to the life categories. Might make my life a little easier. Okay, what sucks right now in terms of work? Okay, I'm going to put down like looming stress. The looming stress of Vlogmas, which is funny because like I do enjoy Vlogmas. That's why I do it. If I didn't enjoy it, I wouldn't do it. But I do know that last year Vlogmas kind of burnt me out a little bit. I do not want that to happen again, right? So this is not necessarily a now pain point, but it is a foreseen pain point, an upcoming pain point that might happen if I'm not mindful of it, type of a thing, all right? So as said, this first part was very much about the idea of just initial ideas, getting them out onto paper. Doing this one is either a mind unwind, mind map type deal, or just as a list, right? Because depending on your personal preference, you could do one, you could do both. I would recommend not doing neither because this is where you get your initial ideas out. This second part, though, is more so just digging a little deeper. So thinking about the things that are awesome, the things that you love, the things you want more of, and then the things that are not awesome and they suck and you don't want them as much. Those type of things. Okay. As said, though, repetition here is good. We like repetition here because this is a really good indicator of what you might want to work on. Okay. Like we kind of talked about with the mind unwind kind of initial brain dumping stage, it can be very useful to give yourself some structure in this part, kind of, maybe explore these questions individually so that then you can kind of get a little bit deeper with it, and also give yourself a time restriction so you're not spending the entire afternoon, evening, night, whatnot doing just this part, because although this is great for getting our ideas out of our head and onto paper so we can make sense of them, it's not necessarily the greatest for actually then making a plan and taking action and whatnot. Especially because if you do a really thorough job of this, you will probably end up with a list of a lot of different potential goals. And depending on the time period you're working on, trying to tackle all of those at once, it's probably not the best idea. So now, when it comes to thinking about which ones we're actually going to pick, you do need to be mindful of what time frame you're going to be using. So for me, my time frame is going to be Q4 because I like to do mine in 3-month blocks. But for you, maybe this could be like, a preemptive goal setting for the entire of 2026. If you're the kind of person who likes to do that kind of annual focus goal setting, you could be using this process to make yourself a 5-year plan. Totally fine. The number of things that you pick are going to be dictated by the time frame you're giving yourself, and also what you think you kind of like can handle as a goal getter. I know for some people they need to just pick one thing, and it's like, this is my one thing to focus on, this is what I'm going to be pouring all of my time, effort, and energy into, and they will be really happy with that, and they'll make a lot of progress because they're really streamlining their focus. I am not that person. I'm the kind of person who, if I try and work on just one thing, I will get bored and I will fall off on it, and then I won't make progress on anything else. And then I'll get to the end of my period feeling really bummed about it. So for me, I usually like to pick a small fleet of goals. But if you're kind of just getting started with this, or you're not really too sure, maybe having a maximum of 3 is probably good, especially if they're big ticket items, because the size of the goals also is going to have an impact. For instance, doing a whole house declutter, that might be like a major project for you that is going to take several weeks in order to actually accomplish that. You don't then want to kind of tack on a whole bunch of other really big projects at the same time. But thinking about picking your goals, we're going to put this here. So picking your goals. We want to think about time frame. So how long are you going to give yourself? Is Notion a free software or paid service? It does have a free plan, so you can use it for free. We want to think about how long are you going to give yourself for this goal getting? Are you going to be doing it kind of quarterly like I do? Are you going to give yourself a whole year? That type of thing. If you give yourself more time, then usually you can pick more goals. But I also find that if I start to pick a time frame that's too big, I will just lose focus on things. I like having that smaller time frame because it gives me a focus period. It means that I am a bit more mindful of having a deadline type of a thing. Also, you need to think about it in terms of if you're giving yourself 3 months and you have, X fleet of goals, do I want to get this goal to completion, like a finished point, or do I just want to get it partway there? What kind of milestone am I aiming for that goal for the period I've given myself? So if we come back to that idea of the Scotland trip that we're now taking together, I hope you're all coming. It's going to be great. At the end of my quarter, at the end of the year, for instance, what kind of progress do I want to be celebrating for that goal? I'm not probably going to have made it all the way to Scotland and have had my trip, but maybe I just want to have picked out a list of places that I'm really excited for. So instead of setting the goal of go to Scotland, it could be pick the places I would like to go to in Scotland. Alrighty. So that one notably is something we want to pay attention to. What time frame are you using, and thus how many goals can you pick as part of that? The next thing we want to think about is repetition or itition. Doesn't matter because I'm writing this in the scribble book. Repetition. That looks like it's the right word. What came up repeatedly, all right? What came up multiple times as you went through these questions? Because if it's coming up multiple times, it's probably something that, your mind is trying to tell you, "Hey, this is important to me. Please work on this. Please make this the thing that I pick." All right? As said, we don't have to get it to a completion point in the time frame we've selected, but by the fact that it came up a lot of times as we went through this process, that is a really good indicator that it is something that we probably should or probably want to work on. There's something that meant that it came up repeatedly for us. Okay? That one's a really good way to kind of pick what it is you want to work on. Other things. You're excited about it. I find that it is so much easier to work with my excitements rather than pushing a boulder up a hill and trying to work against my excitements. If there is something that I am genuinely excited to work on, for instance, like a project or like a video series or something in my personal life that I'm just really eager to do, then it is a lot more energy efficient for myself. It makes a lot more sense energy wise to just lean into that excitement because getting it done will not feel like as much of a chore, essentially. So if there's something you're genuinely excited for and you want to try and make progress on that before the end of the period, whether that's a quarter or a year or whatnot, I would pick that. I would lean into that. It also makes this goal getting and goal setting process so much more fun. I like having fun. I hope you do too. I feel like it kind of makes sense, right? So whatever you're excited for. Another thing to note here is whether something is feasible. Can I spell the word feasible? No, but I'm going to try. Feasible. It looks good. Feasibility is important, okay? Especially if you're thinking about it in this kind of quarterly sense. The quarter we are currently moving into is quarter 4. What else is going on for you in quarter 4? Because just because we are, looking at the stuff that we want to get done, the goals that we want to kind of set and work on and all of this kind of stuff, doesn't mean that the rest of life isn't still happening. Right? Doesn't mean that you can then go and shirk all of your other responsibilities and just pour all of your time, effort, and energy into goals. If you can, so blessed. You are living a good life, I reckon. I cannot do that, and I think the majority of us probably can't do that. We still have other obligations that are going to fall outside of the scope of our goals, that are going to take our time away, take our energy and attention away, which means that we need to account for those so that we don't get disappointed come the end of the quarter. If you set yourself a laundry list of things to do and then don't account for the fact that you're not going to be able to spend all of your time on those, you might get to the end of the period just being like, oh, I only got 2 things done because I just conveniently forgot that life was super busy or anything like that. So do make sure that you're considering what is actually going to be feasible to work on. Another way to think about this is there are appropriate times to plant plants, right? There are appropriate times to plant a garden. Make sure you're not trying to plant a garden at the wrong time of year, right? So thinking about that, thinking about the things that you want to work on, is this the most appropriate time to do those things? Is the kind of effort I'm putting in going to be the best spent? Or am I going to end up having to put way more effort into it, way more energy into it because it's just not the right time to work on it? I still want to work on it. We're not saying goodbye to the goals. Remember, by picking and choosing here, we're not saying oh, yep, cool, scrap that, never going to do that thing. Can't get to Scotland by the end of the quarter. Guess I'm never getting to Scotland type deal. No. That is not the intention here. We just want to make sure that we're putting our focus towards the things that we reasonably can do in the time that we're giving ourselves. Okay? Also, another thing to think about, especially at this point of the year, is what I'm going to call pre-work. Because we are, just over 100 days away from 2026? Yeah, just over 100 days away from the new year at the time that we're hanging out here live. What kind of things could you do, or what kind of goals could you work on, or small parts of your goals could you work on that would set future you up for success, that would lead you into the new year feeling really proud of yourself, feeling really accomplished, but also the kind of foundations that are going to make 2026 even more awesome? That's something I'd be thinking about. It's something that I'm probably going to be focusing on for my goals. Now, as we've gone through this, tink, I would love to know, what are some of the things you're thinking about doing? What are some of the things that you are going to be like writing down on your list? I'm going to flip this one over. I'm going to write down a list of the goals that I think I'm actually going to work on, because as you start to pull them out of this, I do recommend you actually pull them out, write yourself an official list of goals for whatever period you're thinking about. I said tink and then I started running my mouth. I'm going to actually drink some water. The body's like, yes, give me dehydration. It's what we need. But what are some of the things that you're like excited to work on, or some of the things that, they're kind of sucky and you want to address them in either the quarter coming up or the half year or whatever else? I'm going to keep saying quarter though, because I like to do my quarterly. Okay, so Jess's quarter 4 goals. Quarter 4 goals. Also, just as a tip, if you find that this much space makes you feel like you have to fill this much space, pick a smaller journal. Because I'm going to write my list. It is not going to reach the end of this page, and I'm going to be like, oh, there's so much space for extra things. I don't need to work on that many things. I don't need to work on a whole B5 journals worth of things. Alrighty, study Spanish for your New Year's trip to Mexico. Oh, that is so cool. I love that. Excited for planning your house renovations? Sucky is losing weight. Yep, very valid goal to have though. Completely fair, because one of my goals is going to be about weight loss. Let's see. Mine is going to be get under 80 kg. I think that'd be a really fun milestone to be celebrating come the end of the year, because this is one of the things that I like to think about sometimes, is just, at the end of the period. So for me, that'll be at the end of the year, like, December 31st or whatever, ringing in the new year. What progress do I want to be able to stand there and celebrate? Like, hanging out with my friends, doing our New Year's kind of party or whatever it is that we're going to do. No idea. What is it that I want to be celebrating come the end of that period? That is still, feasible and, reasonable with the time that I've given myself and all of that type thing. But I want to celebrate my birthday. Celebrate my birthday. My birthday's in October, so it's coming up soon. We're less than a month away now. So cutting screen time before bed and using that time to read again, that's great. I think that's an excellent goal to have. One of your goals for quarter 4 is going to be health related. Want to get better at nutrition, so I decided to make one of them meal planning and prepping. Love that. I think that doing my meal prep has been one of the best things I have worked on this year. I think it has been the most beneficial for my physical well-being, and just eating more nutritionally. She can do English. Yeah, maybe learn English should be on my goal list. Quarter 4 plans seem the hardest to plan for you. I would love to hear more about why you find them the hardest. I can kind of understand that, like, I find personally the reason that quarter 4 becomes difficult for me is 1, it's busy, and 2, I just start really focusing on the new year. I'm like, oh, this is all the stuff I want to do next year. This is like future Jess's problem. I'm like, yeah, but current Jess could do things too. We could do that, right? So have a gathering from the Instagram collection. So those are those reels of awesome event ideas. I want to have one of those. I think that would be fun. It'd be a nice little kind of creative project. Yeah, looking ahead too much. That's very fair. I am one of those kind of like people who loves a fresh start, and the new year for me is like that's where major fresh start energy is. So I kind of can start to think about it as like, well, okay, if quarter 4 isn't going to be me kind of like doing a fresh start for myself, what is it that I could do to make the fresh start even more fresh? Like, make it fresh start deluxe type of a deal. Let's see, what other ones do we have? Want to be stronger and hopefully manage to lose some weight too, but that will not be the goal. Fair. And I think that in terms of like the framing of the goal, that can be really important as well. Like, I know that for some people, for instance, like if we're thinking about the weight loss one in particular, for a lot of people, they will word the weight loss one as like oh, I want to be healthy, because that's something that does resonate with them. But some people feel they need to word it as I want to be healthy, even though that's not actually what their goal is. So I find that regardless of how you're wording your goal, the most important thing is to word it in such a way that actually resonates with you, right? So, for instance, something like get under 80 kilos, that is something for me is a very visible milestone to hit. Like it's very obvious when I do or don't do it, and that's something that's going to help me, type of a thing. Whereas if I just said like lose weight, I'm like, cool, you lost like half a kilo across 6 months. That counts. I'm like, technically it does, but it's not actually aligned with my vision for the thing. If we think about it in terms of like the full house declutter, right? So decluttering the house was the goal, I suppose. But then I got like quite specific on the metric that I was looking for that. I wanted to see if I could declutter 1,000 items from my house. And I did. I got to like 1,029 or something like that. Probably could have gone further, but once I hit the 1,000, I'm like, cool, I'm done. Like, one of your joke goals is to be able to bench press your body weight. That'd be cool. That'd be a cool thing to be able to say that you can do. I always find it very interesting. Some of the videos that come up on my Instagram are the ones where it's like, "You're not too heavy, your boyfriend just doesn't lift high enough," kind of a thing. I'm like, yeah, maybe that's the thing. Vogel needs to lift more heavy things. I'm not expecting him to go and lift weights, but still. Yeah. I wanna lose weight to look sexy in jeans and clothes I refuse to put on now. See, fair, but, like, that's the thing, right? If that is the wording and that's the reasoning that resonates with you, then it is much more impactful to write it down in that way. Like, I wanna, if we think about it in terms of lose weight, I actually don't really give that much of a toss as to what my weight is. I care more about how I look, to be honest. I don't enjoy looking at myself in the mirror a lot of the time. I mean, it's getting better. It's getting better. But looking at myself in the mirror, I would just start to like nitpick myself a lot. I want to get to a point where I don't nitpick myself. And I know that part of that is going to be weight loss. But anyway, so finish the sisterhood of the traveling book. That is something that needs to happen. Finish the sisterhood of the traveling book. And if you're like, Jessica, what is this? The Sisterhood of the Traveling Book is essentially like myself, Rachel, and Monica. We each pick a book and we read it and annotate it ourselves. And then it gets passed to the next person who reads and annotates it. And then it gets passed to the next person who reads and annotates it, who then passes back to the original person. So it's kind of like this fun group project where we all get to annotate the book and then have like a keepsake of our reading time, which I think is kind of fun. But yeah. Alrighty. Cooking new meals in a carnivore diet. Ooh, nice. We like it. We like meal cookings and stuff. Alrighty, let's see. No pressure, but you're eagerly awaiting the recipes in Notion database. Nice. I'm looking forward to making that. That is definitely a Q4 goal. We'll put that one down. So, release the Kraken. No, the Notion recipe book. And that would be a good one to work on. And again, this is something I'm excited about. So we're filling it with things that are going to be exciting and timely and all of that type of things and stuff that they're not just like I should work on this, but it's I'm excited to work on this, or I know it's going to be really impactful if I work on this type of a thing. Make sure that you don't write too many down. If you're the type of person who having too many goals, it's just like, oh my God, absolutely not. I like to have goals on here that are also just a little bit fun as well. Like ones that maybe they're not going to be the most life-changing things ever, but they'll feel like a kind of fun little accomplishment to work on. For instance, one of mine is going to be read to TBR veterans. Read to TBR veterans. I don't think that's how you spell veterans. It doesn't matter. This is my goals list and I know what I meant. So as part of that, like they're gonna probably both be fiction books. They're both just gonna be fun to read, but I've been putting them off. And it's getting to a point where it's like, do you actually want to read them? Do you actually want to read them? Or are you just lying to yourself? I'm like, no, I do want to read them. I'm like, well, prove it. Read the book. So in terms of that, we've got, I want to declutter my house, but thinking realistically, I'm going to aim to do downstairs in the next 3 months and then upstairs for the next quarter. That is a great idea, right? So like breaking it down into something that is actually feasible, feasibility was important here. For the time frame you're looking at, what is the kind of like realistic portion of whatever it is you wrote down in your brainstorm that you could actually do? So, If it's traveling type of a thing, realistically, I can plan part of an itinerary. Or maybe if it's like, tackling your TBR, maybe realistically, I can read 5 off of my backlog of, stuff that I've been saying I've wanted to read for years. Maybe it's time to let it go. That's also fine as well. If it's thinking about, hitting your goal weight or whatever, maybe it's not feasible or healthy to hit your goal weight in the next 3 months, but what kind of progress could you make towards that that would feel like an accomplishment type of a thing, all right? We do not have to like completely wrap up all of our big life dreams in the next 3 months, but what kind of things could we do and what is the most important for us to do at the moment? What feels the most pressing? What feels the most exciting? That's the stuff that we kind of want to work on. Yeah. I hope this has been helpful for you. I hope that in thinking about your goals for the next period, whether it's the quarter or next year or whatever else, that this idea of, starting with your initial thoughts, just get them out of your head because brains are made for having ideas, not for holding them. We're going to get those onto paper, either in a kind of mind map form or just a list. But then from that, we're also going to want to ask ourselves, what's the stuff we want more of? What's the stuff we're excited about? What lights me up? What do I want to bring more of into my life? But also, what kind of sucks right now? What are my pain points? What kind of goals could I set around that to either move away from pain or mitigate it or make it so that there's less of that in my life? Remember, like we said, repetition here is a good thing because it highlights to us that this is the stuff that's probably the most important. This is the stuff that maybe in that next period, the next quarter, next year, or whatever, I really want to focus my attention on. Those are the things we're going to pull out, making sure we're keeping kind of like, front of mind. What time frame am I actually working on? How much is realistic to work on right now? The feasibility of that. What else is going on outside of my goal work that is going to pull my kind of focus away from that? All right. Once you've considered those things, then taking it out, actually writing yourself a list of just the goals you're pulled out, because looking at all of that kind of scribbly mess that we had before can be a little bit overwhelming. Simplifying it into a list that you can kind of focus on for the period ahead is going to be good for making sure that you're not overwhelming yourself. Like we talked about at the start, the stuff that we're talking about in this video is covered in Epic Goals. If you wanted to check out Epic Goals, we've got the QR code on screen where we talk more about not only how to do this brainstorming stuff, we get kind of into, deeper questions you can ask yourself to really do a thorough job of thinking about what you might want to work on, thinking more about that kind of repetition and the kind of themes that come through your goal planning and such. But then once you've figured out what you want to work on, how can we word that in such a way that we feel really connected to our goals? We're actually going to be more likely to accomplish them because we have worded them in a way that is going to resonate with us. And once we've got those, how do we break it down? How do we plan it out? How do we make sure that stuff is actually going to happen? Yeah. If you want to check it out, I said QR code on screen. We would love to have you over there. But even if you don't check that one out, do make sure to join up for the Change Your Life Challenge for Q4. We would love to work on your goals with you. I am so excited about all the stuff that we are going to accomplish over the next 3 months. I hope this was helpful. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.